From dog tags to ownership, heroes take the lead. Stories of veterans building dreams with passion, drive, and speed. From service to success, we're here to inspire the quest. Dog tags to ownership, we're the best. Take the prize.
From the battlefield to the boardroom, this is Dog Tags to Ownership, the podcast where veterans share their journeys from serving our nation to leading in business. Hear inspiring stories of grit, growth, and the entrepreneurial spirit that drives those who serve to succeed. Tune in and take the first step toward your own mission in entrepreneurship.
Military One Percenters, welcome to Dog Tags to Ownership, where once a week we interview veterans who charted a path towards entrepreneurship. Here, our goals are to share resources, advice, and success stories about starting a business, discuss strategies for building financial independence and creating your own path, and most importantly, build a community to support each other through the challenges of transitioning from service life to civilian ownership. We're extremely excited to introduce our guest to the show today, Nick Lawless. Nick is a U.S. Army veteran and the founder of two security firms, CPS-1 and Phobos Security. Coming from humble beginnings, Nick has become one of the most sought-after security experts, including overhauling security protocols at the White House complex. Nick, welcome to the podcast, and thank you so much for joining us today to discuss your journey from dog tags to ownership. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're really excited to have you on. Matt and I both come from military police backgrounds, so security,
Awesome.
somewhat understand it, probably not to the complexities that you deal with it. But before we get into your security firms, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your military service?
Yeah. You mentioned already, I come from kind of humble beginnings where, pretty much from nothing. I started out kind of, I guess, behind the eight ball, so to speak, as a child, where my parents, I guess, just split, and my dad knew he couldn't take care of me, so he decided to give me away for a pound of weed. And that's back in like 1986 or 87. But from there, just survived abuse pretty much throughout my whole childhood and an unstable environment throughout childhood. I started working actually really early on in life, and at 13 started doing residential construction every summer, helping pay bills at my parents' house as well. So it was really early on learning how to cope with life and taking that lesson forward, but always kept moving forward. So out of high school, I decided to join the Carpenters Union, and I quickly moved up through the ranks there, and I realized I got to a point where the only way I could move forward is to go back to school or do something different. I decided to join the Army, and that was a challenge in and of itself because I was already like 23 by the time I decided to join the Army, and I needed to take some different things for waivers and all of that. And I eventually got a waiver from Vice President Dick Cheney just to get in. So I ended up getting in. And unfortunately, I only spent 2 years in the Army because early on in basic training, I snapped my back, so to speak, where I had a sacroiliac dysfunction, and that just sucked my leg up into my spine so quick that it caused like 5 bulging discs. And that injury, even though I kept going on it through basic training and AIT, it eventually got me medically discharged 2 years later at Fort Hood. I worked on the Apache helicopter, got through AIT, even got to do that at Fort Hood as well. I loved my military service. I signed up for 6 years. I really wanted to get deployed, everything, do the whole, probably 20. The injury really knocked that dream, so to speak, out of me. But I still felt that kind of call to public service. So after the military, after going back to school and all of that, I still knew that I would probably join the U.S. government and, try to provide a public service through that. But really a lot of hardship growing up, getting through the military, and even after the military with rehabilitation and all of that. So it's a huge story from start to finish, but I have a book out now, Lawless Leadership, that goes through that a little bit and really how to cope with all those different challenges that we face, whether as veterans or as regular civilians through life. Yeah, now here I am owning security company in California, one in Pennsylvania.
Can you talk a little bit more about just your transition out and that time frame between when you separated and where you arrived at today? So did you get into some federal work after the military, or what did that journey look like?
Yeah, it was a rough journey at first. I had been a carpenter, right? And then I went in the military and I worked with my hands there. Walking with a cane at 24, 25, and realizing, hey, I'm not going to be able to do physical job anymore. because my back is messed up. That was the first kind of blow. And when I say that, I got severely depressed. I'm not going to lie. And I had to work through that. Thankfully, there was a great therapist at the VA who sat down with me twice a week to really work through that and realize that this isn't the end. I can do something else. And he's the one that actually was like, remember, you have the post 9/11 GI Bill. So why don't you go back to school? And I'm like, oh, yeah. Duh, why not? But at the time, too, I was on some heavy medications and stuff. So it was kind of like I didn't really think that through 100%. But going back to school pretty much within the first 6 months of getting out of the military was the best decision of my life. I ended up going to Binghamton University. I did my 4-year degree in 2 years because I had the post 9/11 GI Bill to pay for my housing, help me with my family. I had 2 kids at the time and a wife. It was a challenge, but the post 9/11 GI Bill really got me through that and paid for most of my tuition. I say most because 1 year into it, the Congress changed the law that if you go out of state, you have to pay the difference. And that was kind of a bummer, but I wasn't going to change schools at that point. So yeah, just challenges there, but really working through them and continuing to move forward into the job search at that point. So 1 year in, I started applying for federal jobs and started taking interviews with the CIA, the State Department, getting through the processing and all of that. And then they would tell me, well, let's do this again when you actually graduate, because they wanted to make sure I had the bachelor's degree done. So getting through that process and then being told these multiple tests, multiple interviews, multiple psychological exams, and being told come back later when you get your degree, that was kind of another blow. But at the end of the 2 years and when I actually graduated, I felt like I owned the world at that point. I always felt I could do anything I ever wanted to, but having a degree, getting through it with the back injury, the medications that I was on, really motivated me to just, all right, it's time to take on the world. I looked at Washington, D.C. for my next move from Northeast Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C. There's not really much work in Northeast Pennsylvania, I'm not going to lie. The federal government process of hiring back then was a lot harder. I think it's a little bit easier now that I understand it too. But getting into the federal government after working a year at a nonprofit, that was a huge win for me. And I didn't start at the CIA, I didn't start at the State Department or any of the fancy places, but I started at GSA. And what they did was put me into a emerging leaders program where they were like, we wanted 2 veterans on this program just because you guys have the background, the discipline. I was one of 2 veterans in the program and just got to move all around the entire organization of General Services Administration, who pretty much runs the government behind the scenes. They handle everything from the pens to the paper to the vehicles that all of the military drives. So it was really an honor to work there and learn the ins and outs of the behind the scenes of the government, including the presidential transition. They handle that as well. So that was pretty neat. And I'd say 2 years into my federal career, I ended up working a detail where I got to help set up an entire new organization or agency within the federal government. That was called the Federal Permitting Improvement Steering Council. Great name. I laughed because it's a long one. But that experience got me exposure to the executive office of the president, where me and the director were pretty much working together to set this up and dealing directly with the Obama administration. So that helped propel me even further, especially because we successfully set that up and got things going to help improve the permitting process throughout the country. So that was great. And then I ended up meeting a great mentor within the federal government. She's been all around with presidential transitions. She's very well connected. And when she met me, she was, look, you're a great analyst, you're a great project manager, you're a great this, that, and the other thing. But what you really are is a leader. And this government needs more leaders like you. So I want to develop your leadership further and put you through a program to propel you possibly even out of the government because you're such a great leader. She set me up for a year-long program, and that program got me over to the White House, where I actually got to develop the emergency operation plan for if anything ever happened to the White House complex, what would be the next steps. Me in 2019, 2018, hearing that, I was like, why is it 2018, 2019, and this plan isn't created yet? But I learned a lot in that process and why that wasn't created yet. So 6 months later, fast forward a little bit, got the plan pretty much done. It became very classified, obviously. and moved on to the next kind of detail and project, and really stayed at the White House because of the relationships I've built as an employee of the executive office of the president at the time. So it was quite the experience in the federal government. But yeah, the transition overall from the military to the federal government, I would say was difficult back then. I think there's a lot more help now in terms of helping veterans get into the government. The service organizations are really trying to help as well. I think as long as veterans keep helping veterans, you're going to see more success in that process.
From you doing what you did in the federal government and then working at the White House, meeting that mentor, and getting those contacts, is that what drove you then to start your own security businesses, or was it something else that you were doing that got you to where you are today?
Yeah, so it was kind of a mix of things, but yeah, essentially, I think my mentor really helped me see who I am from the inside out and my mindset and what I can bring to the table for more people and really get my story out there, help. I mean, because I was already doing this just kind of on a small scale, but she was just like, let's develop that and really propel that forward for so many other people. But I will say, when I eventually bought the company here in California, I was at a point in my career where I was just like, yeah, there's some parts of the government that are great. There's some parts that are very bureaucratic and political. And I guess being the leader that I am, I can't just sit back and be told shut up or don't speak up on this issue or this topic. So I started moving towards entrepreneurship and really, how can I make the best of my situation, what I want to do, and still help in one way or another. I started looking at acquiring security companies probably in 2023, um, and really shaping my thesis around what I wanted to do on the outside of the government. I knew that I would stay in the government at least a year or two just to get my footing and make sure I'm making enough money for my family and all of that, but I knew it was time to go.
And so you said that you knew that you wanted to acquire security companies. So was your strategy entrepreneurship through acquisition? Was that your way of doing it? Were you looking at specific types of security companies that you wanted to acquire as you were building your model or your thesis in your head to do this? And then how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I ultimately, when I first started the journey, I met an individual who mentored me in that he actually encouraged me to build this thesis and not just security, but look at other things because I have a background in so many different areas. So he was just like, let's look at it at a deeper level, what you want to do. So we did come up with a whole strategy of let's look at security companies between 1.5 and $3 million, where we can get an SBA loan, where we can set those up right away for success so that you don't have the huge loan payment every month and then pay that off, go on to the next one and start combining security companies. So that was the original thesis, was really security company between 1.5 and 3, get it set up, get going, get maybe 6 months to a year down the road, buy the next company, roll that up into the other security companies so that, you have the same HR function, the same CFO function. So we really thought that through on a grand level. And then we started hitting some, I'd say, speed bumps when we would meet other security companies and they would be like, yeah, we have this much in revenue. And then they were kind of hiding some money or, doing some things that were off the books, but they're trying to get credit for it. And I'm just like, well, I can't do that with an SBA loan. So yeah, had to move on. So I probably looked at 20 different companies before I finally acquired a company that made sense on paper. And then unfortunately, the company that I've bought, got to be careful how I word this, but there were issues in the sale. I'll just say it that way, that have led to some problems in terms of the revenue and everything that I'm seeing right now, even 2 years later. So yeah, you really got to dive deep. You really got to do your due diligence and then even probably have a forensic review sometimes if something just smells just a little off.
You said you looked at 20 different companies. Was it you, or did you have a team that was helping you look at those different companies and figure out which one was the best? You gave some advice there, do a forensic analysis almost of a company before you acquire it. What was your process in figuring out what the companies were and then how you got to where you are to buying the one that you did?
It was me. It was all me, and then I did have a couple friends that, wanted to learn how I kinda analyze things and do the due diligence. I would work with the mentor that I talked about, the business mentor, and, he showed me different things to look at in terms of, profit and loss statements and tax returns. Once I found let's say, the 20 companies that were between the 1.5 and $3 million mark, I would then request, "Can I sign your NDA so that I can start reviewing some of your documents and go through that whole process?" Most of the time, it was pretty clear that they knew I was gonna work with the SBA, they knew that I had this much for a down payment, they knew whatever, so they would just pretty much clear me right away, and I had worked with enough brokers at that point, let's say at the 10 business mark, that they didn't even make me sign an NDA anymore, so it was pretty interesting, and then, yeah, getting through the financial documents pretty much by myself, and then, yeah, when I bought this company, I did have an attorney look through them all, and things were good on paper. But it's a lengthy process, one that you really should take the time to, definitely hire an attorney once you get through your initial kind of financial review. But once you get through that and you start going into more of the due diligence period, is hire an attorney, hire a forensic accountant just to double check things. I would hate to see any other veteran, anybody really, deal with kind of what I've been dealing with ever, because it's kind of a nightmare scenario for a lot of people. A lot of people ask me, "How are you still smiling?" And I'm like, I just got a good lawyer, and I know that God's on my side, and just going to keep pushing through. It's a fun process, though. I had a lot of fun in creating my little charts and, studying everything to the great detail that I did, and then determining, okay, this one really isn't making that much money that they say they are, or this one might be making that much money, but maybe there's some tax issues that they're, keeping some money aside for. So, and that's always interesting too, because that can be fixed if they're willing to show it.
And when we talk about security companies or firms, it's a fairly broad landscape. But
Yeah.
what specifically does your company look like? Is it executive protection? Do you have a lot of staff? Is there a lot of folks at work, or is it more on the technical side?
Yeah, it's actually morphed a little bit here the last year, honestly, because I was looking to find new ways to transform it. So the one in California, it was primarily a small security guard firm, unarmed at the time. And, we're morphing it more into, yes, that commercial retail center, construction site of security firm, but also moving into executive protection as I'm expanding from Fresno, California to the Los Angeles market, and really started working with the music industry, entertainment industry, working with legal partners and doing executive protection, or with the legal teams that I'm working with, we're doing background investigations, open source intelligence reviews. So if, let's say, a client, had some defamatory comments about them, we can see if their Instagram took a huge hit and actually make a case that, you could sue back for defamation or whatever. There's a whole bunch of different things that we're doing now. I also have the ability to get into the cybersecurity side of things, just haven't gone that far yet. But I would say primarily physical security.
And I'm sure you've probably been asked, but AI, like, is that changing the security landscape for you? Are you able to harness any of that?
It is. I use it on a daily basis, regardless, for communications, creating content. But in the security world, I'd like to see it go a little bit further before I started implementing it. I do like there's some reviewing of, let's say, security footage that AI can do to pick up on the anomalies and send an alarm. I still think that the biggest success rate, or the largest success rate, will come from that physical presence, from even if it's just one guard versus artificial intelligence, because I see it and I've seen it where even people think that their cameras are keeping them safe, but I've seen it where people have come onto job sites, flipped off a camera, and continued taking stuff off a job site because they know they're going to get away with it. I mean, you might have their face in the dark, but they're still probably going to get away with it. So from the artificial intelligence to the technology, it's been a sore spot, I'd say, because I love technology. I love artificial intelligence. I think there's some great things, but I still think that customers need to realize you need a physical presence first, or a mix of the two. You can't just move from a body to a robot set of eyes.
Yeah, a little bit more passive, less active, or
Yeah.
something that's preventative. Other, it's just kind of surveilling, I suppose.
So Nick, I know you said you have you have two companies, so one in California and then one in Pennsylvania. And we touched a lot on the California one, but what's the one in Pennsylvania and what do you provide with that one?
So that one, I've been trying to secure a cluster of clients for executive protection before I move into a full-on service right now. So I've got a couple in the works that are like maybes and so close to being finished. And then yeah, with me being in LA, I've had to postpone a couple meetings in terms of like trying to finalize those. That's the fun part about being an entrepreneur, right? Is really trying to manage your time the best way possible. And with me being in a lawsuit right now in California with this company, the number one priority is this company in California, especially with a government backed loan on this company. So that's where I've put a lot more of my attention. I've got a couple people that are helping me with acquiring clients in Pennsylvania. So it's been a journey, but that's definitely more of a higher caliber executive protection company.
And I guess so as you're going through the entrepreneur journey and the challenges that come with that, what has been your biggest challenge trying to just get into the entrepreneurial space and get your businesses going and making them somewhat successful?
If we could somehow extend even an hour a day, that would be amazing. But time, not just in the sense of work and finding more clients and all that, but family time. You want to build that into everything. I do my best always to put my family first, and I've been in LA now for a month, and that makes me feel terrible at times because I know I miss my kids and I know they miss me. So it's one of those things that yeah, time you can never get more of. I'm thankful that my kids understand what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do is bigger than me. It's bigger than them. It's really trying to build that legacy for them and their kids. So they understand that even at, 19, 16, and 12, they're already understanding that entrepreneurial mindset of, yeah, this is bigger than just, dad's desire to make money. And it's never been about that for me to just make money. It's been about that legacy piece of let the Lawless name live on with my girls as they grow up and decide on what they want to do. If they want, they could, potentially work in the company or take the company over one day. So, yeah, time is my biggest challenge.
So Nick, any regrets, having said all that, any regrets on not sticking in government position, grinding, doing the 9 to 5?
No, not at all. Even through tough times, we learn stuff. And through all these tough times, I've been learning more and more and more. I think that's what life's about. I mean, for us to learn, to grow, and then pass that on to our kids. So even with all of this, it's been a journey. I won't even say it's been like I've been to hell and back because to me, it's fun. All of the challenges are fun. From even in the government, some of the stuff that I dealt with that I hated, it was still fun. I would never turn back and say, I am disappointed in myself for leaving the government because I left eventually because of Doge. When they started doing their layoffs and everything, I was like, I'd rather go out on my own terms. I'll take the buyout or whatever. I did that, and yeah, I have no regrets about that. And that's not me being stubborn. I think that's just me being realistic. That was a sign, I think, that it was time for me to go. It was time for me to move on and do this.
And with what you're doing now, and I know you have a book coming out, are you able to be the leader that you want to be for the companies that you're building?
Yeah, we talk about this a lot actually with my employees, and they're like, yeah, you're doing great in terms of overcoming these challenges, sharing and being transparent as much as possible, just everything that is really in my book. And yeah, the book is out now. It came out I think January 13th, I think was the date. But yeah, that was a fun adventure as well, and now we're getting to see the success of that. I enjoy always putting, I guess, money where my mouth is, and really saying I'm still a great leader. And I enjoy hearing that from my team, even when I least expect it.
What made you want to write a book and get into that space and just put all that things on paper? Was it from, your humble beginnings? Was that a part of it, to being in the Army, telling that story, and then telling the tenets of what you believe lawless leadership is? But what made you want to write that book?
Yeah, it really came down to it's something I've always had in my mind to do because I see it every day, kids that are going through different things, whether it's boys and girls with their fathers not being around or drugs in the schools. There's always challenges out there for all of us. I didn't go into too great of detail in my own life because of specific reasons, but I also just wanted to show just enough that holy shit, if I can say that, this has happened to somebody, it's happened to me, and they still kept going forward. They still kept putting their one foot in front of the other. They still kept getting up after being beaten down or thrown across a room or being sold for a pound of weed, essentially. It's that stuff that I think people need to hear to really remember that we all go through some tough shit and we can deal with it. We could deal with the trauma of it, the conflict of it, but we can use it as a weapon. I think that's something that, especially as veterans, we can use a lot of things as weapons in this world. And why not our challenges? Why not use that to help us propel ourselves forward and really make a difference back in the world again? I think there's a lot of weak leadership in this country right now. If you look at the leadership right now, there's not a lot of veterans. And I think that's why. I think we need more veterans back into the leadership fold because we all learned how to work together. Whether we disagreed or agreed on everything, we probably didn't all the time, but we still worked together to get the mission done. And I think that's what this country needs again. Writing the book is something that's been on my mind for, I don't know, 10 years at least. But really now that I've entered the entrepreneurial space, I was like, let's do it. Let's get it done. And then we'll do a part two, I think, here in another year. Just move on from some of the trauma talk to more just leadership talk as well. But the book really lays out a great blueprint for overcoming these things and making you realize psychological pain points can be great tools and weapons for your leadership journey.
One of the characteristics we continue to have folks exhibit on here is that resiliency and that persistence. And it sounds cliche of just, never giving up, but it's so true. And I think it's especially when you're hitting adversity head on. It's when the days are easy, it's like, okay, yeah, I can keep moving forward. But it's when the days are really, really bad, when that leadership and the persistence and the resiliency and all of that are really tested. It's at that point when you keep moving forward and it truly matters, and it feels that much better when you get on the other side of that too, I think.
And if I may, you're right. It sounds so simple, but I think I look at this world today and we've made it too complex in a sense where I tell people all the time, like even in relationships, we need to get back to the basics. Sometimes you just need to get back to the basics. It's like clearing your rifle in the army. Like, you had the basic steps to clear your rifle. And if you had a jam, you had your basic steps. It was always back to the basics. And sometimes that's what we need. And if keep moving forward is just a basic, simple slogan that helps somebody or a huge group of people, I'll take it because it's something that I've lived by and it's got me through a lot. And people are always saying, how did you get through that? And I just say, I just kept moving forward because really there's no other choice. And at the same time, life is beautiful. So not to say that there's no other choice. Life is beautiful. And I have kids and I have a family and I want to make money and I want to do this, that, and the other thing. Yeah, keep moving forward. So back to the basics. I don't care. I don't care how that sounds cliche or not, but I'll always say that and sound simple.
As you're building your companies and you're looking at potentially acquiring more, where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. One thing, when I had that original 5 to 10 years, I think I'd already have acquired a couple companies, but the lawsuit, I've learned, yeah, I'm 2 years into it. And I never would have thought I'd be 2 years into a lawsuit. So that's one thing. And then, but I still have that same 5 to 10 year kind of plan of having a security enterprise from physical security down to the cybersecurity that spans coast to coast. And that's why I did start in California, even though I lived in Pennsylvania. And then I started the company in Pennsylvania so that it forced me, let's get this going. Don't stop. keep looking, keep working hard to acquire those clients in that cluster that you want. And yeah, start going coast to coast.
It's a lot of that networking aspect of it in the veteran community, but also getting your name out there, utilizing your book, going on tour potentially with that. I don't know if that's a plan for you, but utilizing that for speaking engagements and just to continue getting that Lawless name out there and what you guys do and what you provide for the security realm. Matt, before we get to our last two questions, is there anything, Nick, that we didn't ask you that you would like to talk about?
You brought up a great point right there with the networking. Networking can be a pain in the ass, but it really can be a blessing. And you really meet a lot of people throughout life that want to help, but probably can't as much as you want, but still have them in your circle and help them eventually. Then you'll meet a random, like this job I'm on right now in Los Angeles. I pretty much got through a barber. I met a barber, and 2 times later, he introduced me to an artist, a rap artist. And I was like, okay. And then it just evolved into this relationship where I'm pulling security for an artist. It all came down to networking and how you present yourself and how you sell yourself within the first 2 minutes. And not so much sell yourself, but yeah, I guess going back to just presenting yourself and showing what your worth is in general, and that confidence in your business, yourself, and where you're headed. And being in the military, we've already networked quite a bit. We have people all over the country at that point. So utilize them and really keep in touch. I mean, not just from a business perspective, but just from a friendship perspective, and make sure we're all staying healthy and mentally and physically healthy. I still try to do that, on a regular basis with a lot of people I served with and people I haven't served with. So yeah, keep expanding your network. Never give up on your network. And yeah, there's some people that you're going to cut from your network because they're not pulling their weight one way or the other, whether that's friendship or business side. But, yeah, keep networking.
My passion is real estate, so I listen to a lot of podcasts, listen to audiobooks, everything in the real estate realm. Any books other than your book that you would rent to our listeners to check out and that you think would be beneficial, maybe that was very impactful for you?
One of my favorite books was The Gamble by Thomas Ricks. And it really got into the inside story of Iraq outside of 2003 and talked about the insurgency, talked about the counterinsurgency and really the deeper military strategy behind all of that. One thing that I actually highlight in my book, we do need to get back to thinking about some more of the Stoics and philosophical books and going back to the ancient times of Sun Tzu and reading The Art of War. And when I am trying to grow and really want to, work on my discipline, I always try to go back to like a military style book first. And then I'll go to like Marcus Aurelius or some ancient kind of text, just to free my mind from modern times where everything's flowing 100 miles an hour at you, and really take that time to think back to those more, I don't want to say peaceful times because they were at war during the Romans and ancient Egypt and all of that, but it was just quieter. So I kind of put myself in those positions of, hey, now I'm in ancient Rome while I'm reading, whether that's during a quiet period or not. Yeah, I just like to have that mindset, but I do read a lot of philosophy, and I include a lot of philosophy and Stoic kind of quotes in my book just to kind of help reintroduce that back to society, and remember that, yeah, a lot of strategy comes from those days and those eras. And so, yeah, The Gamble by Thomas Ricks, it's a few years old. I'd say 12 years old now, but it's one of my favorite books. I love Thomas Ricks as an author, but the way that he just presented that whole insurgency, counterinsurgency, and his research on the topics.
That's great. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And I think from a security background too, understanding warfare and what we do, and then how that kind of equates to what you do and from a security standpoint and being able to provide executive protection or whatever, physical security you're doing probably also helps you as you're looking to build your companies. So our last
100%.
question of every episode is Admiral William McRaven authored the book, Make Your Bed, Little Things That Can Change Your Life and Maybe the World. So Nick Lawless, do you make your bed every morning?
I started to actually, no lie, the last probably 2 weeks I've been making my bed every morning. I used to be a bum about that, but I also, how do I put it? No, I used to be a bum about it. I'll just say that. Like, just get out of bed and get going and then take care of the dogs. And then by the time you know it, it's already noon and you're like, why would I make the bed now? But no, I love kind of now going back to when I was in the military and you had to make your bed every morning, and doing that now is just like, okay, hop out of bed, make the bed and get going for the day from there. There's no harm in that. And now when I walk past like the bedroom here, I'm like, it's not a mess. It's nice and clean. I feel better, and it does make a difference.
Nick, I'm so glad we were able to connect and get you on the podcast. It's been great. Yeah, it's been great listening to your journey and a lot of the insight that you provided. Definitely need to check out your book. And hey, we wish you the best of luck in continuing to build and grow your companies.
It's been great. Thank you so much. The book's on Amazon now. I think it's on sale. So yeah, if you want a copy, go grab it. And yeah, it's doing pretty well. I'm pretty proud of it. So thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Military One Percenters, whether you're brainstorming your first business idea, already running a company, or just curious about where to start, Dog Tags the Ownership is the place for you. Please hit that subscribe button to receive all new episodes. Also, if you know someone who has turned their dog tags into ownership, drop us a DM on social media or tag someone. We're always looking for new guests to bring onto the podcast. And as always, Military One Percenters, thank you for your service. Let's continue this journey and working together to write our next chapter. Until next week, keep pushing to turn those dog tags into ownership.
From dog tags to ownership, heroes take the lead. Stories of veterans building trains with passion, drive, and speed. From service to success, we're here to inspire the quest. Dog tags to ownership, we're the best.